Now, since my last Offroad Outlaws video went out, I've been checking out a lot of your suggestions. I've been reading all of the comments on that video, and I wanted to share some of the feedback that I got on the last video here in this video and offer some of my own 2 cents and what I think may happen with the game in the future according to these suggestions. And also, I want to dive more into some of the reoccurring trends that I see in the community in terms of suggestions. And so, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through a ton of the comments from my previous Offroad Outlaws video, and if I read your comment, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll try and call out as many names as I can. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into your comments from the previous video. Now, the first comment I'm going to actually look at comes from @Jimmy-RO3BJ, and they say, awesome video as always. What I personally want to see in the game is more exhaust tip options, which we've covered in the past, and that one is a very common suggestion I'm noticing. They also said they'd like to see more in-depth color matching options, and I know that the designers out there are going to be, or rather the kind of livery editor users out there are going to be like, well, why do you need color matching options? You can just use the design editor to, you know, color match stuff yourselves. But here's the thing. I have a decent amount of time in the design editor, not a ton, but a decent enough amount of time to kind of understand what I'm somewhat doing, and color matching can sometimes be done, but not always. There are certain vehicles that will allow you to color match certain panels. Obviously, you have to do it manually through the livery editor, but even so, there are other vehicles where it just won't let you place sort of a paintable layer over a certain part of the vehicle. One of the biggest standouts with that, at least to me, is a lot of the vehicles that have chrome on them. You can't really do anything about that. It's like, oh, you want to do a chrome delete? Well, that's just too bad, I guess. You know what I mean? So it's things like that, little things. So when I saw that color matching suggestion, I was like, you know what? I think this goes a little bit deeper than just the vinyl editor. Now, continuing on in that same comment, they also would like to see new headlight and taillight options. I think that's, I don't know if the devs are going to do that because I think that's like really, really deep customization, and I don't know if they plan to go that deep, but it would be really cool to see. Let's see. They also said headache racks, overland gear, and so after all of those options that they suggested, they also said that they wanted to see a very specific truck, specifically a '06 Ford F-250 crew cab. And I notice sometimes that people will have very, very, very specific vehicle suggestions, and I think a lot of these very specific vehicle suggestions just really go to show how personal of a connection a lot of people have with certain vehicles. Now, moving on, I also wanted to say that they said they wanted to see a long bed option for the 2nd gen, a mega cab option for the 3rd gen, deep dish wheels, or rather more deep dish wheels, and a lot more, but it's too much to list in that one comment, which completely understandable. Now, someone else, James Shepard 3404, said that they wanted to see like more patrol car light options, like underglow lights. That one, I don't know if it's gonna be done or not, but that's a very interesting and kind of unique suggestion. They also said they wanted to see like options for speakers, like subwoofers that you could put in different vehicles. I don't really know if that's something they would ever do, because I guess it would really only be visual, because you're not really importing your own music into Offroad Outlaws and then playing it through a stereo. But like from a visual perspective, I've never thought about that. Like a giant, you know, like sub box in the back of a truck or something. I've never thought about that. But I mean, seeing it as a suggestion and reading it, I don't know if it's something that I would use, but at the same time, hey, if it's something you want, you might as well put the suggestion out there. Because even if it's not a suggestion that I would use if it got added to the game, that doesn't mean that nobody would use it. I'm sure a lot of people would use it. This next one was a really good suggestion because I think not only is it a good suggestion in general, but I think it's something that the devs could actually do, and that is from Wolfman-1016, and they said a 6x6 ATV or a 6x6 side-by-side, as well as tracks for the ATVs and the side-by-sides. They should also add tractors and snowplows. The latter part of that, the tractors and snowplows, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think that a 6x6 ATV or a 6x6 side-by-side would be sick to see in the game, and heck, the option for tracks on ATVs and side-by-sides, that would be hilarious. I don't know how many people would use it, but if you think you would use that, let me know in the comments down below. I think it would probably lend itself to some pretty unhinged builds, but then again, I mean, at least for me, you know, I have my realistic builds when I play Offroad Outlaws, but I also have my super over-the-top, wacky, ridiculous, unhinged builds, and I find that a lot of people's Offroad Outlaws garage is sort of split between, you know, they have their realistic vehicles over here, and then they have their wacky, wild, crazy, unhinged vehicles over here. And I think it's, you know, I think it's good to have a garage that's got a balance, you know what I mean? Like, because if it's all just realistic builds, you know, I mean, that's one thing, and if it's all just wacky, wild, unhinged builds, that's another. But I feel like, again, it's nice to kind of have a mix of realistic and super wacky and unhinged, but I don't know, that's just me. I like the variety of it. Now, another really interesting set of suggestions comes from, well, I was going to tell you, and then I returned to where the comment was, and then the page automatically just scrolled on me. Now, I found it again, and it's from Hollis Davidson 2132, and they said some things that would be great would be having the ability to get out of your truck and switch to another truck instead of having to be in the truck to switch. I think that's more of a coding thing, but it would be really cool to see that changed. I would love that as well, like to be able to get out of one truck and walk over to the other truck and get in it. And then the same person goes on to say that, like in No Limit 2, they would like the ability to have a custom license plate for roleplay, and the custom license plates thing would be super, super cool. I do think, though, that, like, at least for me, in Offroad Outlaws, I've been making, you know, custom license plates using the design editor for the longest time. The only issue with doing that is that some vehicles, with the way the bumpers are designed and with the way the vinyl editor interacts with different bumpers, can sometimes make it a little bit tricky to actually design the license plate that you want. But regardless, that would be another really cool feature to see. Another common one that I tend to see a lot, and this doesn't come from one person specifically, but rather it comes from a lot of different comments that I've seen, is people saying they would like to be able to get into their friends' trucks, like actually, you know, walk up to their friend's truck as their character and get in their friend's truck and then, I don't know, ride down a trail or down the street to maybe another player's house in like a roleplay scenario. Either way, I do think that would enhance the kind of gameplay dynamics a lot, and it would also enhance the roleplay capabilities of the game a lot, because a lot of people that are playing this game at this point are either using it for the vehicle customization, or they're using it for, you know, just having a game that they can open up and do some crawler trails and then go back to their day, or they're using it for roleplay. Now, obviously, there's going to be a kind of a wide variety of people that use the game for different things, but those tend to be the main things I see people sort of using the game for on a regular basis. And I think that that's a lot of where a lot of these suggestions come from. I did also see another comment, and I can't find it again for some reason, so forgive me for not remembering the name because I can't find the comment again. And I've seen a few other comments as well that have kind of all been people saying things like, well, they quote-unquote stopped updating the game, so I stopped playing it, or, you know, I'll play the game again when it starts getting new updates again. And I feel like it's an interesting place to look at it from, because on one hand, I'm like, well, the game in its current state is a really, really good game with a lot of different things to do, especially for a mobile game. But at the same time, I can completely understand how somebody might be like, oh, I haven't seen a consistent stream of updates or update news from the devs in a while, so I'm going to go play other things. And I think that there's definitely, you know, there's definitely validity to that. And I think it also is sort of in part, not necessarily due to, but sort of a side effect of how a lot of games nowadays are very big on constantly trying to push as many updates as possible, and I think for a lot of people, there's the idea of like, okay, well, we got this update, and, you know, we're going to play around with it for a couple of months, and then, you know, literally 2 months later, there are some games where an update will come out, and, you know, month and a half, 2.5 months later, they're already putting out news about the next update. And so I think people are very used to that like constant feed of updates and update news. And I think that at this point, you know, the Offroad Outlaws developers, I mean, they've got not just one other game with No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, but they've got technically 2 other games now with American Marksman. And I would imagine with 3 different games now to keep up with, they're probably having to sort of like pick and choose where they put their development time. But at the same time, you never know. They could be, and they've done this before, they could be just being quiet and cooking up an enormous update, and then they're just randomly gonna drop a massive barrage of news one day, and we're all gonna be like, oh, so that's what you were working on this whole time. But if y'all enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all next time.